So you might see a lot of articles and commentary today like this from Mayor Pete Buttigieg advocating for statehood for Washington, D.C. That's because the House of Representatives is voting this week on a bill to grant Washington, D.C. legal statehood. Democrats who advocate for D.C. statehood claim the 700,000 U.S. citizens who live in D.C. are denied representation in Congress. Taxation without representation, that's what D.C. license tags read. Well, these advocates are wrong. Tonight, I'm going to give you 5 reasons to say no to the Democrats' D.C. statehood bill. Reason number 1, the American people don't want D.C. to be a state. In fact, according to a Gallup poll from summer of 2019, 64% of the American people outside of Washington, D.C. oppose giving D.C. statehood. Only 29% support it. Reason number 2, it's unconstitutional. The Democrats' bill in Congress is actually just symbolic. You can't grant statehood to D.C. legislatively. You'd have to amend the Constitution to do that. Article 1, Section 8 of our Constitution very clearly states that the national capital will not be part of a state or treated like a state. It's supposed to be a district, not a state. It's supposed to be a neutral place for lawmakers to meet. Pelosi and her party can't just pass a bill and override the Constitution. That is not how the Constitution works. Reason number 3, the American people already rejected a constitutional amendment to give D.C. congressional representation. In 1978, Congress passed a constitutional amendment to give D.C. House and Senate seats, but only 16 states in our country ratified it, so it failed because the American people didn't want that. Reason number 4, it would be wildly unfair in presidential elections to give D.C. statehood because of the 23rd Amendment, which grants D.C. residents the right to vote in presidential elections and therefore to participate in the Electoral College. What does this mean if D.C. were shrunk to just a couple blocks per the Democrats' current legislation? It would mean, thanks to the 23rd Amendment, that D.C. would still have 3 Electoral College votes unless there was another constitutional amendment to repeal that provision of the 23rd Amendment, which means the tiny, tiny number of people who live in the new D.C. state would have a disproportionately huge and therefore unfair impact on the presidential elections. Reason number 5, the Democrats are only doing this for a political reason anyway, because D.C. is very heavily Democratic. The Democrats want 2 more Democratic senators and more Democratic representatives in the House. Don't be fooled when the Democrats pretend to care about people being taxed, while they try to tax you and me out of house and home with every single policy they support and every single bill they pass. It is just a political stunt. Say no to D.C. statehood.